Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's body image and fitness coach. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Lyndall, who is co-owners of the Lift With Squad, and you may even know her as a powerlifter, a ex-gym owner, and a dog mum. Now, Lyndall believes in female strength, empowerment, and fitness being an expression of what we are all capable in doing. And we're going to be chatting a lot about this today, about the positive changes that Lyndall has made herself, the positive changes that are happening within the industry, and all the, positive, I'm saying a lot of positive today, but positive intakes of improving our confidence as well. So Lyndall, thank you so much for being with me here today. And to start off with, I want to ask you, what is one huge positive impact that you've made over the coming years?
Thank you for having me, Siggy. What a great introduction. I think, in regards to female positivity around fitness, I think there's been such an evolution. I started training probably 15 years ago, and I think the evolution of, women in fitness and, body positivity and all of that has been so amazing to see. So I think, there's a couple of things. I think it's our mindset around, healthy body image, our mindset around training with weights, and that it's actually a good thing for women to get into that weights room. And I think just so much more information out there as well, so much more information that's easily available, podcasts, online, all of that sort of stuff. And it's so great that there's so many amazing voices in the industry now that weren't there 15 years ago, when it was probably still a little bit taboo, and, to be training with weights and all of that sort of stuff. So, I think there's a lot of amazing changes that have really helped bring on that body positivity movement.
I love that. It's so true, because back then, when I first started my journey 10, 12 years ago, it was very bro science like.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It was so interesting. And I remember back then, I was actually thinking about this morning when I was like, oh, what am I going to say to Siggy, I got into my fitness journey kind of around the same time as well. I was very sporty growing up and, in my teenage years. And then when I started working full time, I really had to stop doing all of that sport. I just didn't have the time or the capacity to do that. So, training was kind of something that flowed naturally and something that I moved into. But back then it was, everyone was doing their body pump classes. Everyone's doing their spin classes. I even remember at the gym that I used to train at, which was a Fitness First, they had a women's area, and it was just all cardio machines, and it was really light dumbbells, and, bless, it's lovely that they had that, but it was just kind of this segregated thing, and then there was me over here in the weights area, and that was weird, and even when I went to my first powerlifting competition, which was probably about 8 years ago, it was me and two other females in the flight, and that was it.
Wow.
Now it's not uncommon for there to be 2 or 3 flights of females, which is so amazing to see. So yeah, I think we've come a long way, but I think there's still a way to go. I think there's definitely clients and women that I come into contact with that do still have that fear, or do lack a little bit of that education, and just are a little bit unsure and a little bit uncertain as to, where to go and what to do.
I love how we've started chatting about this, because this literally takes me back to when I first started my journey and wanting to train with weights. And I didn't have that confidence, some of the clients that we come across that had that fear of, being in the gym amongst men. And I remember going to, oh my God, it wasn't Fernwood, it was another female gym, and they would put you through a circuit.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Amazing. Yes, I've definitely had my fair share of those little circuits that are like machine only circuits. Definitely, I actually managed a gym at one point that was all about that. And look, that's definitely it's got its place in the industry. Like I think, every gym, every niche, boot camp, all of that, it has its place, and it definitely, focuses on a certain type of clientele that love that sort of thing. But I think, yeah, we are evolving. And I think people want that slightly more personalized approach when it comes to training as well, because everyone's goals are different as well. And just kind of putting someone through the same sort of circuit when everyone's got different goals is not going to reap the best rewards, I think. And, that client is going to get bored of that really quickly as well. So I know I would personally, but yeah, it's good to see that things are changing and that weights are getting heavier, and that it's not just about aesthetics as well. I think, a lot of people train for aesthetics still, but I think it's changing as well.
I don't know about yourself, but when I first started my journey, it was literally all about fat loss. I was wanting to be the skinniest version of myself, toned in quotations, because we know that doesn't, mean anything. But back then, I literally just wanted to be small, petite, didn't want to train with weights, do all the cardio and stuff. But now it's completely different. I'm training not just for aesthetics, but it's mainly for like energy, mood, strength, injury prevention.
Oh, 100%. And I think it comes and goes with trends as well. Like the same as we have trends in fashion, I think there's definitely a trends in body shapes and aesthetics and things like that. 10, 15 years ago, it was all about that waist thin model. That was what was walking down the catwalk. That was, what we saw in magazines. And, as social media started to come onto the rise, it's what we saw all over our social feeds as well. So it doesn't surprise me that was a goal of yours, because it definitely was a goal of mine back then. But for myself, I'm not a naturally super skinny person. So for me to achieve that, like, I was absolutely destroying myself and my body to try and get there, because I wasn't educated at that point. I was just like, okay, well, I've got to burn as many calories as possible. How do I do that? I'm going to eat a lot less, and I'm going to train a lot more, and I'm going to do a lot of cardio and just burn as many calories as possible. So I got there, but not in the healthiest way. And it's through those sorts of experiences that I can relate to girls that feel the same way, and that are going through that journey, or I've gone through that journey because I've been there myself. So yeah, I think, the trends have changed from that kind of waif-like model to girls that have a little bit more shape, and, they look strong, and they have muscular tone, and they have bums, which thank God, because I've always had one. Me trying to fit into a size 8 is just not possible. So now that curvy is in, I am super happy. But yeah, I think it's exciting to see the future, because it's all about, inclusion. Fitness is for everybody. And I think that's the biggest thing that I like to preach. Like the girls that we have, coming through Lift with Squad, they're all shapes and sizes. And I think that's so beautiful. Like everyone's at a different stage, everyone's at a different experience level, but everyone's there to train hard, and that's what I love about this industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And it's very empowering for every woman, because, a few years ago, or like whether it's like 5 or 10 years ago, as we mentioned, it was literally just about us being the smallest version, because, society was telling us to do that. Magazines was showing that. We're evolving a little bit more and making women realize, like, hey, whether you're taller, shorter, muscular, skinnier, like we're all accepting you all to do, the weight training.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's giving us some really good goals to work towards. Like I'm not saying that, fat loss and that is not a great goal. It definitely is. But, I remember myself when I was on that fat loss journey and I was really strict about it. There's nothing more deflating than sticking to your calories, every day, doing your cardio, doing your weights training, and then getting on the scale and you haven't lost anything. Put on weight. You know what I mean? It's so deflating when you've worked so hard. But when I started to change my mindset from, okay, I've got to drop weight to, okay, well, maybe I can try and squat a bit more weight, or maybe I can try and do a body weight push up, or like, wouldn't it be cool if I did a body weight pull up? You know, like when I started to change my mindset to have a little bit more positive goals, the byproduct of having those goals was actually fat loss. I was training harder. I was training for a purpose. I was super focused when I was in the gym because I wanted to achieve all of those mini performance goals. And I think having those performance goals is super important, even if your key main goal is fat loss, because it keeps you on track and it keeps you motivated. And there's nothing more exciting than hitting those little targets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And while we're on the topic of fat loss, because we've mentioned this a couple of times now, mentioning to women that it's not necessarily a bad thing that you are wanting to pursue fat loss, but it shouldn't be the whole picture of you wanting to, get into training.
Oh, 100%, and this is something that I talk about with my girls from experience, because when I started my journey in the gym, it was from a place of negativity. It was from a place of self-hatred, because I wasn't confident in myself. I didn't like the way I looked. I thought I was, fat, all of those thoughts that we've probably all had. So I think when I started my journey, it wasn't from a place of loving myself. You know what I mean? And yes, I got the weight off, and yes, I hit my, body weight goal, but I wasn't happy at the end of it. You know what I mean? And that's what I thought I would be when I got there. I thought I would lose all this weight and I'd get to my goal, and, I'd immediately be confident, and I would immediately be sexy and glowing and, this, figure of confidence. And I just wasn't there. I was exhausted and I was depressed, and, I was just constantly like, it's not enough. I'm not skinny enough, all of those thoughts that we've had before. So by shifting my mindset, and that took a number of years. That took a number of years to realize that if I don't do the inside work, it doesn't matter what I look like on the outside. You know what I mean? So now I actually get to enjoy training, and I enjoy food, and I enjoy social situations, and I enjoy my life because I don't have all of those restrictions that I place on myself. And this is something that I try and teach my girls as well, because, a lot of girls come to me and they're like, well, I want to lose weight. What do I have to do with my calories? What do I have to do with my nutrition? And I'm like, well, we need to look at the whole picture here. It's not just about what you're putting in your mouth. How hard are you training? How often are you training? Are you prioritizing rest and recovery? Then maybe we can obviously look at nutrition and things like that. Let's manage your stress levels, all of these things that are super important, that we tend to forget about, really matter in the scheme of things.
It's so true. And I hope our listeners are getting some pointers from this. But you also mentioned a really big point here is the mindset works side of things. Because too often, and you know what, maybe people watch us and when we're speaking on our stories and the post on Instagram, and they're like, oh, they're so confident, like it's so easy for them. But people don't see behind the scenes. And I'm really glad that you also mentioned that it has taken you a number of years to get to where you're at right now, because some people will look at us and be like, oh, she's got her shit together. She knows what to do. But it's just like, you're not seeing what's happening behind closed doors.
I wish I had my shit together, honestly. But I think it's something that is ongoing. It's you don't wake up one day and you're confident. You know what I mean? Like I would probably say that I'm a pretty confident person, but I would definitely say there are times when I don't feel so confident. Maybe you're walking into a room of people I don't know. I'm, walking up on stage to speak in front of a number of people, starting a new job, like all of these things, they're scary for even the most confident person. And I think especially, in this day and age, especially with social media, advertising, all of that sort of stuff, we're constantly bombarded with the ideal perfect image. We're scrolling through TikTok, social media, we walk outside, we have a look at the advertising billboards, advertisement on the side of a bus, and it's showcasing what we should look like, the perfect body, the family we should have, the job we should be looking for. You know what I mean? It's this constant internal dialogue that we have to have with ourselves to remind ourselves that that's not us. Social media is a highlight reel, and we can't compare ourselves for that. Everyone's on their own journey, and, we have to remember that. And even I have to think about it a little bit more as well. Now that I'm kind of, getting a little bit more involved with social media and things like that, I can see that I'm like, she's edited that photo, that's a filter, like, oh, she's maybe had cosmetic surgery there, and that's fine. But, we have to kind of separate ourselves from, comparing ourselves to those people, to those influencers or those advertisements that can possibly be heavily photoshopped or filtered.
Oh my God. Speaking of heavily photoshopped photos, you know what? I'm fucking guilty of that. Okay. I used to do it when I first started, wanting to have that smaller waist and going onto Photoshop and trying to like tweak it. But you know what? I still see that today with certain photos. And, I send so much compassion to these girls because I know what it feels like. I've been there. I know it, to my core. But again, we're also wanting to make other people realize that, as you mentioned, Instagram is a highlight. They're not showing you behind the scenes. They're not showing the struggles, the breakdowns, the challenges.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I'm 100% guilty of it as well. Like, even if it's just kind of, editing a blemish on my face, that is exactly what I do before I pop an image up on Instagram. And I think we're all guilty of it in some degree. I know when somebody takes a photo of me, I'm like, take 25 photos. I'm going to pick the one where my body looks the best, or maybe I look the skinniest or the strongest, or you can see the most muscular tone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to pick the best photo of that bunch to put online. I think we all do that. We all want to portray ourselves as having our shit together, as having this beautiful life and enjoying ourselves and all of that sort of stuff. Like we all do that. It's kind of, second nature. Like, we don't even think about it anymore. But yeah, it's about kind of reminding ourselves that that's not necessarily real. You know what I mean? And not to compare yourself to that. And yeah, like I said, this is something that I've had to remind myself of time and time again. And it's taken many years to realize that as well, because how people edit and all of that sort of stuff, it's changed throughout the years as well.
And speaking of comparison on Instagram, like, I'm sure, you've come across this, and I know a lot of my clients have, when we're comparing our own progression to other people. So as a powerlifter as well, you comparing your numbers to other women with the same weight class, or, with the same company, it can be really challenging because you're like, shit, like, she's lifting like 20 kilos heavier than me, but I'm doing this. And,
100%. When my first ever competition I did probably 8 years ago, it was a deadlift only competition, and I deadlifted 160 kilos. And that was a national record at that time. In that weight class now, the record is like 255 or something crazy, like, they're so strong. The girls are so strong, and they've become strong incredibly quickly, and good for them. It's a very hard task to be that motivated to train and to have that much available time to put aside to really focus on your training and your nutrition and, everything that goes along with prepping for anything, not just powerlifting, but bodybuilding and, any sport that's out there. There's a lot of time. It's a big commitment. So, I mean, power to them for sure. But yeah, you definitely look at the girls and you're like, why am I not lifting? They're lifting like they're benching like 30 kilos over my bench. You know what I mean? And I did do that for a number of years, because probably for the first kind of 4 or 5 years, I was always winning. I was always coming first. And that's a great feeling. Obviously we all like to win. And then all of a sudden these girls just got real strong, real quick. And then obviously my workload changed, and I wasn't able to commit the amount of time that I used to be able to commit to my training as well. So obviously that affected my strength. And initially I was a little bit upset about it, because, nobody likes coming second or third or whatever it is, right? But then in the end, I was like, you know what? It's me versus me. If I can do better than my last competition, if I can, do a lift and maybe it's stronger or it's smoother or it looks better or it's faster, I've already won. And, for me, that was a really great mindset shift. And I did it with a weight class as well. As I started to I guess, move up in weights and get stronger, I gained a lot more muscle. Yeah. So my body weight gradually went up and I started to shift into the next class, and it was getting harder and harder for me to cut back to the weight class below. So eventually I moved up to the next weight class and I was like, this is fantastic. I don't have to cut weight. I don't have to sit in a sauna and sweat it out. Like, it was amazing. And it was really kind of, as I started to do that shift, I was like, who cares? I'm just here to have fun. If I don't have to worry about, if I'm having 250 grams of rice and 200 grams of chicken, I can eat whatever I like and just enjoy my training and enjoy the lifting, rather than having to worry about reaching a scale weight and all of that sort of stuff, because that's stressful.
Yeah, I've seen, like, I haven't done, weight cuts or whatsoever, but I know a lot of my friends who are powerlifters, and sometimes it looks really stressful when you're having to get to a certain weight and like the water loading and all of that. And I'm like, guys, like, why? Like kudos to you for doing that. You know what? Like, kudos to you. I think it's amazing. You also mentioned something really powerful just before. When your workload started changing, you needed to change your training ethics around that as well. And I think this is a really big one, especially for coaches, but just working women in general. We put so much pressure on ourselves that we have to hit our own personal targets as well as our business. But then we also have to have that, big girl conversation going, okay, what's the number one priority tonight? Is it your training? Or is your business? And sometimes business takes over a training, or sometimes the training takes over, a business. So how did you navigate around that after, taking more workload and having to, like, pull back a little bit with the training?
Yeah, 100%. And this is really why I've probably pulled back from doing so many competitions in the last couple of years as well, because it really does take a long time to prep. When I was in kind of like full peak, you're training 4 to 5 times a week, and each of those sessions can be anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. Because sometimes if I'm squatting or deadlifting a really big weight, it can take me 45 or 50 minutes just to warm up to my working set, and that's quite a long time. And then you're kind of having 8 to 10 minutes of rest in between sets, and it just goes on and on and on. So my workload really shifted probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I took on a little bit more work, and I was still prepping for Pro Raw at the time. This is just before COVID. And yeah, I was training nights. I was training at like 7 p.m. at night, which for me is just not optimal. Like, I'm an absolute nana when it comes to my sleep schedule. I am in bed by 9 p.m. So taking pre-workout at 7 p.m. for a 2-hour sesh is just not the vibe. But, I think it's really about prioritizing what's important for you. My workload, I wouldn't say has changed too much in the last 4 years, but I've really shifted the way that I train. And the things that I train for. Now I'm generally in and out of the gym in less than 50 minutes these days, but I'm also not training for a powerlifting competition at the moment. I'm having a really great time training other girls for their competitions and their goals. But right now, I've come to terms with the fact that I just don't have that capacity. But I think it is really important to prioritize your goals, because I think as women, we naturally put everybody else first.
Yes, we do.
We do. We put our kids first, our husbands first, our jobs first, our family first. We put everything but ourselves first. And I think the one piece of advice that I give all of my girls is just put 1 hour aside for you. 1 hour, 3 or 4 times a week, just put it aside for you. Because at the end of the day, we spend our whole day doing things for other people. We're trying to please other people. We're trying to make people happy. We're trying to get deadlines, and all of that stuff for other people. That's 1 hour for yourself, where you can focus on yourself and you can do something for you, because training is going to make you feel good. Training is going to make you feel confident. And if you are operating on 100%, that's going to benefit your job, and that's going to benefit your family and your husband and your kids and all of that sort of stuff. Because if we don't put ourselves first, and if we don't spend that small amount of time on ourselves, then we're not going to feel great. You know what I mean? And that's going to negatively affect those other aspects. So even when I am super busy, when I have a lot on my plate, like I do now, maybe I'll get up an hour earlier, or maybe I'll spend my lunch break at the gym. Even if it's a home workout with dumbbells and bands, these are the small things that we can kind of add into our routine to really make that difference.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because too often, like, us talking right now, like giving yourself a little bit of time, whether it's an hour a day or, whatever it is. But most women don't look at that as a benefit. They're thinking, oh, like I have to train from home. It's just like, well, yeah, situation changes, but you're still able to do your training from home.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? I think COVID, as horrible of a situation as we were in with the COVID and the lockdowns, it's really changed my perception on what you can actually achieve at home. And I like respect to people that train at home. And I myself, I was training throughout lockdown at home. I bought all the things, had a little setup in my garage. And now actually a lot of the same concepts that we came up with, me and my business partner, Renee, a lot of the same concepts that we came up with throughout lockdown, we still have in a couple of our programs for Lift with Squad as well, because we understand that, not everybody can get to the gym, or not everyone has access to the gym. Some people want to sneak in a workout while their little baby's sleeping, or some people want to, sneak in a workout on their 45-minute lunch break at home. And maybe they've only got bands or dumbbells or things like that. So, it's really kind of changed the way that I look at training, because I think initially before I was like, barbells, heavy weights, machines, gym, whereas, it's given me a little bit more flexibility with how I approach programming, and how I approach those clients that maybe don't want to go to the gym, don't have access to the gym, or maybe they don't feel comfortable at the gym yet.
But not only flexibility for them, also flexibility for yourself, because I'm noticing there has been a little bit of a shift, even though it was a really difficult and shit situation, there has been a bit of a switch within your mindset as well around the training side of things.
100%. Like, I even know a lot of my friends and clients, they really set themselves up at home with, a good setup. They've got a rig and they've got all the things, and they're still training at home. Some people haven't even gone back to the gym. And I think from a programming perspective as well, it's really got me to be a lot more creative with the way that I program as well, which has been quite interesting and quite exciting for me as well. Because I think sometimes when we just stick to those same compound movements all the time, that gets boring.
Yeah.
Yes, we can change the rep ranges and the tempos and things like that, but, there's nothing better than throwing in something that is a little bit fresh and unique and we haven't done before. So yeah, it's been really interesting, but I think it's been a positive shift.
Yeah, definitely a positive one. Well, especially around the training side of things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, nutrition, I think everyone was struggling during COVID because the fridge is right there in close vicinity. But yeah, no, training for me during COVID was actually a really fun experience. The thing that I didn't like was that it was just me. I like training with other people. I like vibes and, all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I enjoyed kind of experimenting with things that we've got at home.
Let's talk about the dynamics of gyms, because I actually had this conversation with a client of mine who she finds that she enjoys going to the gym, but she finds herself not wanting to socialize because she literally just wants to get in and out. But now recently she's single and she's wanting to meet new people. And she's like, I just don't know how to put myself out there. And my first suggestion was, well, take your earphones off. Because it's factual, because I remember when I first started taking my earphones off, people are more approachable to you because you're not blasting music in, you're aware of your environment, so you can start chatting to more people. And you said yourself you love the gym environment, so like what are some things that you have noticed that have helped you?
I think it's really dependent on the type of gym that you're training at. Squad gym that I train at sometimes is very much like a powerlifting CrossFit gym. Yeah. And it's a smaller type boutique gym as well. So people are kind of more inclined to talk to each other in that sort of environment. Whereas if I'm working from home, I'll train at the gym across the road. And I would say kind of the average age bracket in there is around kind of 40 to 50. So a little bit older than me. And I'm also quite heavily tattooed as well. So I don't probably look like the most approachable person. I'm also probably walking around with my resting bitch face on at all times.
Why is it that people don't think we're approachable because we have tattoos? Why?
It's so funny. I actually had a client say this to me. She goes, I literally walked past your gym like 4 or 5 times, and I saw you training someone, and you were, pointing at someone, you've got all your tattoos, and I was just really intimidated. And then I met you, and you're like the nicest person ever. And I was like, well, it's because I'm funny. But, I think it's all about judgment, right? We all kind of, we always say never judge a book by its cover, but we all do it, and we can't help it, right? But it's really funny people's perception of me and how it changes when they actually meet me. But yeah, like those 2 gym environments, super different. The gym that I train at across the road, it's very rare for someone to talk to you. Everyone just kind of gets in, does their thing. Maybe they're overdoing acro aerobics, or they're, on the cardio equipment or whatever they're doing. It's just very different. But they could also be intimidated by me as well. Whereas squad gym, people know me there. It's a smaller environment, so people are more inclined to talk. And everyone kind of has a similar training style. Like everyone's there to lift heavy weights, or to do kind of that circuit training, or something that's a little bit more performance based. So I think because we're all kind of training a little bit more similarly, we're on the same page. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's really about kind of the gym and environment. I love to speak to everybody. Like I could speak to somebody for hours, but I can relate to, what your friend said the other day in terms of wanting to get in and wanting to get out. Because when I'm training at squad gym and I need to do a quick workout, it just doesn't happen. Because someone's talking to me, someone wants a pointer on somebody needs help with something, and that's fine, but your workout suffers for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's an interesting topic, but I don't know if I would be the type of person to try and pick up at the gym, because I don't look very glamorous at the gym. I'm sweaty, I'm red, I'm gross, I'm definitely not cute at the gym.
Well, you know what they say, like it's showing your true colors.
Oh yeah. I mean, if someone can love me when I look like that, then you can love me at any time.
Oh my God, it's so true. I love the fact that we've been chatting about the gym, and I don't know how we came across the tattoo conversation, but it's so true.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, I've had a lot of people throughout the years tell me that I look really intimidating, just on how I look, and also how I hold myself as well. Like I think I'm quite a strong, and I'm quite a confident. I come across as quite a confident person. I've heard from other people. Which I think is a great thing, and people are like, oh, well, you're really intimidating. And I was like, but I don't mean to be. So if you're intimidated by me, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's how you've perceived me, and that's what you've kind of come up with in your own mind, but if you take the time to talk to somebody and get to know them, you know that I'm actually quite friendly. I'm actually quite nice. But I think we all do it. I know I do it. I judge people, and you come up with this perception of them that might not be true, and we do it to people that are on social media. We do it to other trainers on social media and influencers, and, we judge people. I know I watch a lot of lifting videos and things on social media, and I immediately make a judgment, on that person, how they hold themselves on social media, how they lift weights, or, how they come across on social media. I'm going to make that judgment, and we all do it,
Yeah. Oh God, the way that we perceive certain people, the way we look at people is interesting.
I actually had a really good friend of mine that said to me that perception can be truer than a fact. How people perceive you is almost more important than the actual truth itself. And I think that's such an important point to put across, because I have a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm on social media, you look like you've got your shit together. And I was like, oh babe, I wish I had my shit together. You know what I mean? but that's obviously what people get from my social media, or what I post, or how I come across, which is great to think that people think I have my shit together, because I don't think I do.
I don't think anyone has their shit together.
No.
And if they say they do, they're fucking lying.
Do you remember when people said that, people in their 30s had their shit together? What a laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like 34 now. I don't have my
I'm 34.
shit together.
Like, somebody help me.
I know, right? Like, who has this shit together these days?
What are we doing? Oh my God. We've been left unsupervised to just I've got no idea what I'm doing, and I run multiple businesses. No, I'm having a good time. You know what? And I think that's the thing. Like, things are changing so quickly, things are evolving so quickly, that at the end of the day, we're all learning all the time. Like, you never stop learning, right? So, yeah.
100%. And you know what? It's all about change as well. As we grow older, we're getting, well, I'd like to think we're getting wiser.
No. No, I think, I for change used to freak me out, because I really like structure. I do like structure in my life. So change really used to freak me out. But I think now I've really kind of come to embrace it. And I think because I've gone through so many different situations, and I've had a lot of different jobs in various industries, that change, I find, is actually really exciting now. Like, I feel like I've reinvented myself so many times. Like, I started off life as a hairdresser, then I moved into fitness. I've also studied social media. Like, I love to learn.
Yeah.
And times are changing. Like, it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Like, I remember when I started in hairdressing, and my dad was like, hair? What do you mean you're not going to have an office job? Like, that was bizarre. And then I was like, Dad, I'm studying fitness. I'm going to be a personal trainer. He's like, what do you mean you're changing careers? What do you mean you're not going to be stuck in the same career for 40 years? Like, what? And then I was like, Dad, I'm doing my diploma in social media. He's like, what? What do you mean? I think he was most excited about that, because it like would end up being an office job. But I was like, yeah, but fitness and social media. And he's like, what? Like, can't understand. But yeah, we have so much flex and so much, change to look forward to.
It sounds like the conversations that I have had with my parents in the past, seriously, because like, it was so unconventional to what they perceived me to be doing. They thought I was going to like go into medicine or like science. And I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm going to be a photographer. My dad's like, what? A photographer? Like, there's no like progression of career in this. And then I became a coach, and he's like, what? You're coaching now? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, 100%. My parents were exactly the same. Like, when I started hairdressing, and I was doing a lot of photo shoots, and I was doing hair for photo shoots as well. And I was like, yeah, we're going to go do like a photo shoot. And he's like, great. Like, how much money are you going to make from that? And I was like, oh no, like, we're working for free, but like, it's going to be published in a magazine. He's like, what do you mean you're working for free? And I was like, no, but it's about the big picture, and it'll look good in my portfolio and this and that. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? And then, I would really consider myself to almost be like a little bit of the black sheep in my family as well. Like, everyone is like straighty 180, like desk job, like office worker, stay in the same sort of job for 20, 30, 40 years, and that's your life. And, they've been hugely successful, and, really kind of built their life. So, kudos to them. But yeah, I'm the sort of person that if I get bored, I'm out, moving on to the next thing, guys. And if I want to learn something, I'll go and study it, and I'm quite a creative person as well. So I love to do things myself and experience things, which I think they understand now. Yeah. But it's taken them quite a number of years. So when I started getting, like, I had red hair, and I had, piercings and the tattoos, and that really freaked them out, because they were like, how are you going to get an office job? And I was like, don't need an office job. So yeah, no, I think they finally get it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, the evolution through the years and the changes, and, just that old school mentality, I think, is finally catching up.
It's so true. Who knows? Maybe they will catch up, or maybe they won't. But yeah, we'll see till you go onto your next venture.
Oh, yes, I know. We'll see. Who knows what that could be?
Yeah, who knows? So we'll have to approach them then and be like, guys, this is what's happening now.
Maybe you sit down while I tell you this.
Yes. I love that. But I love how we've ended today with making our listeners understand that change is about making a choice for yourself. And like you said, if something doesn't sit right for you and you're wanting to make a change or do something different, like go for it. And I think too often people don't make those changes, again, because they're too scared, or it's that lack of self-belief in themselves.
I think it's lack of self-belief, but also fear of judgment from us. Well, I think, when we set goals for ourselves, whether it be in fitness or health or career or whatever it is, we have to do it for ourselves. Like I think sometimes, and I know I've done this before, I get caught up in well, what are my parents going to think? Or what are my friends going to think? Or what is my boyfriend going to think? Or whatever it is, you really have to do it for yourself and be confident enough to see it through. Yeah. Because I think there's been, I know I've had a lot of clients in a similar situation where they've decided to, go on this kind of healthy journey or this fitness journey, and maybe their friends or their boyfriend or whoever it is, they don't like that, they don't support them. And it's got nothing to do with my client and everything to do with, this person, this person's insecurities coming out, and, and they don't like seeing that. So I think, when we set goals and we approach change, we have to do it from a place of wanting to do it for ourselves.
Yes.
To better ourselves, to better our life, and to really create the life that we want. Because, if we do things based on other people's perceptions or judgments, we're never going to achieve what we want to achieve. So, and that's probably like one of the biggest learnings that I've had in the last kind of 10 or 15 years, is who cares what other people think? Yeah. You know what I mean? I know it's so easy to say that. But at the end of the day, this is your life and it's really short. Like it really is. Like there's so many things that I want to do. And I know I'm going to run out of time and I'm not going to be able to do them all. But, this is why I try and say yes as much as I can. And sometimes I probably say yes too much and I end up with too many things on my plate. But I'm having a great time doing it. You know what I mean? Like when I've got a lot of things on my plate is usually when I'm the happiest, because I'm achieving a lot of different things and I'm doing it for myself. Like I'm lucky that I've got a lot of people that are in my court that are really supportive. Even if they're like my parents and they don't necessarily understand, they're still super supportive of me. And I think if you do have those people in your circle, in your life that don't support you or that do judge you, maybe it's time we need to move those people out. You know what I mean? When you change, sometimes people around you change. So don't be afraid to remove that toxicity when you need to, because you want to surround yourself with positivity. You want to surround yourself with people that love and support you, regardless of the change that you want to go through, or, regardless of the direction that you want to go to. And I think if you surround yourself with those super supportive people, reaching your goal is going to be so easy.
100%. Yeah. So. Totally agree with that. And that correlates to relationships as well. And I think that's something that's not spoken openly enough about, that as a individual who is in a committed relationship, like change is bound to happen, whether it's within like 3 months, 6 months, year, 5 year, whatever. Like you're not going to be the same person you were when you first started that relationship. Neither are they. But again, it comes down to having those, I guess, honest conversations with yourself, but also with them to notice, like, is this change benefit, yourself and them as well?
I know. And I think you can really kind of see people's true colors, when you start to change as well. And, if they're still with you at the end of that, then they're a true friend, or they're a true partner, or, they're a true soulmate. And those are the people that you want in your life. As an example for myself, when I first started my fitness journey, I gave up drinking because I was a massive party girl. Like we would just go get blackout drunk, right? So when I started my fitness journey, I was like, right, that's it. I'm giving up drinking, because obviously when you drink a lot, that's a lot of calories, and then you make bad food choices, and then you get hungover the next day, and it's just a domino effect, right? So I was like, that's it. I'm done. Now I enjoy the occasional bottomless brunch, but you know, for a couple of years there, I gave it up. And it was really interesting, the shift in my friendship circle, because they were like, oh, but you're the fun one, you know, you're the fun one. And I was like, I'm still fun. Like, but I'm just not blackout drunk fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it was really interesting to see how many people that actually kind of dropped off, which wasn't actually a bad thing, because I was like, man, I have been watering so many dead plants, you know, and the real ones that were like, yeah, she's still cool. Yeah, let's go out. Let's, you know, like, let's have lunch. Let's do fun things that don't necessarily involve getting wasted. You know, they're still my friends today. And that's a great time, you know. So I think it's not a bad thing when those people drop off, you know, because it allows room for you to make new friends or have new relationships as well, which is a super positive thing.
Super positive. Yeah. It's so true. And you know what? I think this is like a really good pointer for all our listeners to understand that change is a good thing, whether other people around them see it, you know, as a negative or a positive.
Yeah, definitely. And it's again something that we do have to remind ourselves of, because if you have those people that are around you and they are maybe not supportive, or they are making judgment, or they are criticizing your change, it's hard not to take that personally. Yeah. Because you generally love those people. You really care about what they have to say. But I think we also have to recognize that sometimes what they have to say isn't necessarily doing the best thing for us. So I think we do also have to recognize that. Hopefully, most of the time, you'll experience change and you will have a positive reaction or feedback from your friends. But I definitely know sometimes you won't always. But, you know, I think it's important not to take that personally. And I know sometimes that's really hard. Yeah. But we can't, because that's gonna bring us down. You know, we're gonna have a negative reaction on that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's part of life. Like, as we evolve, we notice those changes as well.
Oh, 100%. Like, all the time, you know, new jobs, new friendship circles, maybe new gym, you know, all of these different things are going to elicit change. We're constantly evolving. And, you know, that's a good thing, because it means that we're learning and we're progressing and we're hopefully reaching our goals as well.
Yeah, 100%. There's no point of you not progressing, because you're just going to stay the same and stagnant, and most likely not, what's the word I'm looking for? Just crossed my mind.
You get complacent, you know.
Yes, like, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, you get, I'm like, I will put my hands up and say that I am like the first person to feel like that. Like, if I feel like I'm not constantly being challenged, like I'm not progressing, and then I get bored, and then I'm like, right, what's next? You know, let's move on. You know, and I think that's a great place to be. Yeah. It's a place that can be tiring sometimes, because I think if you're like me, you just end up with loads of things on your plate, because you're like, yes, I want to do all of these things. But, you know, I'm constantly evolving, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, I love it too. I think there's nothing better than, you know, seeing those changes and the progress as well through it.
100%. And like, just to bring that kind of conversation back to gym environment, like nothing's more fulfilling than seeing progress in the gym as well. You know, like whether it is fat loss, you know, I feel like, you know, we talked about fat loss a little bit earlier. You know, having a goal as fat loss is not a bad thing. It's still definitely a great thing. But, you know, so is a performance-based goal, or so is, you know, achieving a goal to compete in a sport or be part of it, maybe even a team sport. You know, increase your speed or your strength or your agility or whatever it may be. You know your why. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you know, have a really good think about why you go to the gym. You know, what it is that really drives you, because I think when we understand what that why is, you know, we have such a better focus when we go to the gym, because you're like, this is why I'm here. You know, this is the goal that I'm after, rather than just kind of going through the motions and, oh, I'm going to try that piece of equipment, and we'll just run over here and do a little bit of leg press. You know, it's like, I've got a goal and this is what I've got to do to get there. Right. So yeah, change, goal setting, you know, having an objective, relates to all areas of your life, but I think fitness is a key one.
100%. I completely agree with all of that. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, girls, if that didn't inspire you to make any changes, I don't know what will.
Yes, I hope you do. Everyone needs to go home and, write out their goals. And I think now is a really good time to do it because we're coming up to the end of the year. So what are you girls going to achieve before the end of the year?
Reassess your goals.
It's so close, reassess your goals now and then do it again at the start of the year. I'm not one of those people that set those New Year's resolutions. I'm not one of those people, but I definitely like to goal set and I reassess it every kind of 1 to 3 months. I think that's really important to do that as well because things change, and goals change. But yeah, go home and set those goals. I think it's super important.
Yeah. And like to finalize with that point around like New Year's goals, like I'm really like a big advocate around that as well. I don't enjoy setting goals for New Year's because I don't believe that goals should have an end date. Like, yes, we will reach them at some point of time. We don't know when exactly, but we're still wanting to progress and work towards those goals. So, it may take you 2, 3 years, 5 years to reach to wherever you were going. But taking it back is, doing those monthly check-ins with yourself and seeing how you're progressing with those goals.
I think it's the way that we word it as well. Mm-hmm. I think the whole kind of like New Year's resolutions kind of has this really bad stigma of, being a goal that nobody ever achieves or that nobody ever sticks to. You know what I mean? Like I definitely set goals for myself at the start of the year, but they're goals that I know could potentially take the whole year to do. They're goals that might not be overnight goals. And I think when we're setting goals and we're calling them New Year's resolutions, especially when it kind of comes to health and fitness, many of them do relate to weight loss or fat loss. A lot of the time they're like, this is going to be my year. I'm going to be, I'm going to get to that size 8. I'm going to be the best body, all of that sort of stuff. They generally relate to an aesthetic goal.
Yeah.
And it's really sometimes hard to put a time frame on achieving an aesthetic goal because, as you know, there's so many things that, there's hormones, there's, work schedules, there's stress, there's this, there's that. And sometimes it's not necessarily a slippery slope when achieving an aesthetic goal. Weight's going to go like this. As a female, welcome to hormonal changes. We love that for us. So I still think it's important to have goals, but maybe just changing our wording and therefore our mindset around those things. I think having a time frame is important in terms of achieving things, but also know and be realistic in terms of how long that might take to achieve. And I think if you are going to have fat loss or weight loss as a goal for yourself, also add in some other sub goals that relate to things like performance, because I think that will help keep you motivated when maybe some weeks the scale might not go down. So
I love that. So good. Well, girls, I hope you got so many takeaways from today's podcast. It was a good one. And I hope it motivates all of you to make those changes that you're scared of actually doing and doing the work. And, like Lyndall said, if you're feeling stagnant or complacent, maybe it's time for you to look and reassess your goals and make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're ever unsure, just slide into my DMs and we'll have a good chat and I'll crack the whip. Don't be afraid of change, but set yourself some goals and get yourself a really good, positive support circle of people around you.
Amen. Amen. Lyndall, before we head off, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Lyndall Vile _co. And you can also find my business, which is Lift with Squad.
Love that. Well, girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Lyndall, tag myself. And then till next time, make those changes, girls.